Our story starts when Belle Crenelle is chased by a minotaur and saved by a beautiful girl with long golden hair. Covered in the minotaur's blood, Belle goes to meet Ainatola, his guild advisor, to learn about the girl who saved him, Ice Wallenstein. She scolds him for rushing into the dungeon carelessly, but then gives him some love advice. After their talk, Belle goes home and is greeted by his goddess, Hestia. She brought him fried potatoes, and they happily eat dinner together. Later, Hestia checks Belle's status and is surprised to see he has a new skill, Liaris Freeze. However, she decides to keep this secret from Belle. We start off with a secret. This will be fun.
Girls are pretty good at keeping secrets, Ken.
The next morning, Belle wakes up and sees Hestia sleeping right on top of her. He panics, his heart racing, and quickly jumps out of bed to get dressed for the dungeon. As he walks down the street, he can't shake the feeling that someone's watching him. He looks around, but there's nobody there. Just then, a girl calls out, saying he dropped a magic stone. Belle is sure he traded all his stones, but he thanks her anyway. The girl asks if he's an adventurer and how early he got into the dungeon. Suddenly, his stomach growls loudly. The girl smiles and offers him a lunchbox, but Belle shakes his head at first. She laughs and tells him not to worry about her food, saying she'll just grab some from the pub where she works. Then she asks him to promise he'll come back to the pub tonight in exchange for the lunchbox. At the dungeon, Belle keeps fighting monsters, and Ice's image appears in his mind. In the evening, he's shocked by his status update. Almost all of his stats have gone up a lot. He asks Hestia about it, but she gets angry and leaves him alone. Belle then goes to the hostess of Fertility Pub and is greeted by the girl he met earlier. She introduces herself as Sir Flova. The pub owner gives Belle a huge amount of food, and he's overwhelmed. While eating, another maid shouts that their reserved guests are arriving, the Loki Familia. Belle finally gets to see Ice again. The Loki Familia is having a blast, laughing and enjoying the night. But Bet Loga has had a little too much to drink. His mind drifts back to the Minotaur fight, remembering how Belle ran away while Ice stepped in to save him. Bet sneers at Belle, mocking him, saying someone as weak as him doesn't deserve a warrior like Ace. Hearing this, Belle can't take it anymore. His anger flares and he storms out of the pub, heading straight for the dungeon to fight and release his frustration. He doesn't come back until the next morning. Hestia is waiting outside their home, worried sick. When she sees him, she gasps. He's badly hurt. She rushes to him and Belle collapses in her arms, blood dripping from his face. With a pained look in his eyes, he whispers,
I want to be strong.
Hestia updates Belle's status and sees his fast growth due to his rare skill, Liaris Freeze. She wonders if she should tell him about the skill, but worried other gods might get interested, she decides to keep it a secret. Instead of giving Belle his paper, she tells him directly that he's growing at an incredible rate and has the talent to be an adventurer. She reassures him that he will become stronger and promises to support him, lending him her powers so he won't act rashly like before. She asks him not to leave her alone, and Belle promises he won't. After that, Hestia tells him she'll be gone for 3 days. Belle goes back to the hostess of Fertility and apologizes to Mia Grand for not paying the bill the night before. Mia forgives him and Sir brings him another lunchbox. Mia reminds Belle to thank Sir since she defended him. She understands why Belle ran off the night before and gives him some encouraging words to lift his spirits and push him forward.
It's not manly stuff. You can't impress girls if you keep running like this, Belle. Grow up.
Thanks to Sir, she stood by his side, otherwise Belle was doomed. At the gods' banquet, Freya greets Hestia, who is busy trying to get as much free food as she can. Loki soon joins them and Hestia asks if Ice Wallenstein is seeing someone. Loki quickly answers that she would tear apart anyone who tried to get A's. Freya comments on how rare it is to see Loki dressed up. Loki insults Hestia, saying she wore the dress to show off to the poor goddess. Hestia fires back, saying the dress only shows off her flat chest. The two argue by pinching each other's cheeks, and the other gods watch, betting on who will win. In the end, Loki leaves crying. Hephaestus arrives, and Hestia happily says she wants to meet her. Hephaestus quickly makes it clear she won't lend Hestia any more money, and reminds her of the time that Hestia freeloaded off her. Hestia says things have changed now that she has a Familia member. Hephaestus knows that Belle, the boy with white hair and red eyes, is Hestia's Familia member. After hearing that, Freya excuses herself, having confirmed something. After she leaves, Hestia begs Hephaestus to make a weapon for Belle. Looks like Loki lost the battle, but at least she didn't lose her sense of style, for now.
Hestia really knows how to work a crowd, even when she's just getting roasted.
That evening, Belle is standing in front of a weapon shop when Miak greets him, carrying a bag of supplies. Belle asks why Miak didn't go to the god's banquet. Miak says he was busy and gives Belle 2 potions for free. Belle thanks him, and they part ways. In Hephaestus' room, Hestia is prostrating in front of Hephaestus, begging her to make a weapon for Belle. Hephaestus finally agrees after hearing Hestia's reason. She agrees to make the weapon, but Hestia must pay her debt no matter how long it takes. Hestia is overjoyed, especially when Hephaestus says she'll make the weapon herself, and that Hestia will be helping. The next day, Belle casually walks down the street when Anya Fromel, the bubbly cat people girl from the hostess of Fertility, spots him and calls out. She asks him to deliver a wallet to Sir, but Belle is momentarily confused, not fully understanding the request. Before he can say say much, Ryu Lion, the composed and sharp-eyed elf, steps in. She gives Anya a pointed look, suggesting she should explain things more clearly. Anya, a bit flustered, quickly clears up the misunderstanding and fills in the details, making sure Belle understands what's needed. Meanwhile, in the forge, Hephaestus and Hestia are putting the finishing touches on a finely crafted knife. After some careful work, Hephaestus wraps it up neatly, tying it around Hestia's waist. With a nod, she urges her to deliver it to Belle. At a chic cafe, Loki and Freya sit together on the balcony, savoring their drinks as Ais stands silently behind Loki. Loki, always in a playful mood, glances at Freya with a mischievous smile and asks which boy from another familia has caught her eye. Freya, maintaining her cool, begins to describe the child, but her words trail off as her gaze shifts to Belle, who's walking by below. Her interest piqued, Freya excuses herself from the conversation. Ais too notices Belle, her eyes narrowing slightly as she watches him pass. Belle arrives at Monster Feria, searching for Seer, but instead he bumps into Hestia. Without giving him a chance to speak, she grabs his hand and pulls him away on a spontaneous date. The two enjoy some delicious crepes outside the Colosseum, laughing and having fun. But Hestia's mood shifts when she learns Belle was actually looking for another girl. A wave of jealousy hits her, but before she can say anything, a silverback monster suddenly appears from the Colosseum, roaring loudly. It's been ordered to hunt down Hestia, and with no time to waste, Belle and Hestia flee, running through the crowded streets. Did you see Freya's face when Belle walked by? Pure curiosity mixed with danger.
Yeah, but Hestia pulling Belle into a date like that? It's surely a very bold move. Guess she's got some serious competition now.
They race all the way to Daedalus Street, their hearts pounding. Belle, terrified but resolute, tries to protect Hestia by attacking the monster with his blade. But when the monster strikes back, his weapon shatters in an instant. With no way to stop it, they keep running for their lives. Realizing they can't escape together, Belle makes a heartbreaking decision. He forces Hestia into a hidden tunnel, telling her to go on without him. He promises her that he won't let anyone else he loves be taken from him. As he stands alone, ready to face the monster, vowing that he will not lose any family member anymore. Belle remembers the tragic day he learned that his grandfather had been killed instantly by a monster in the mountains. This devastating loss pushed him to become an adventurer, but every familia he approached turned him away. It wasn't until the goddess Hestia offered him a spot in her familia that he found a place where he truly belonged. Fast forward to the present, Belle locks Hestia in a tunnel, adamant that he won't lose any more family, and sets off to confront the silverback monster alone. Meanwhile, at the Monster Feria Coliseum, Ganesha is briefed on the monsters that have escaped by his subordinates. Determined not to handle this crisis with just his familia, he orders his subordinates to contact the other familias for help. Though they're hesitant, fearing the loss of face, Ganesha insists, stating that pride and merit mean nothing if the safety of the people is at risk. The subordinates reluctantly agree, and Ganesha orders them to keep the Monster Feria running smoothly and minimize the chaos. As they leave, Ganesha reflects on what might be behind the escape of the monsters. Back with Belle, the battle against the silverback takes a turn as his dagger shatters. As Hestia is fleeing through the tunnel, she trips and falls, but she quickly regains her composure. Remembering Hephaestus' advice about imbuing hieroglyphics into weapons, she adjusts the knife, forged by Hephaestus, and continues her desperate flight down the tunnel. Elsewhere, Misha informs Aina about the escaped monsters, and an emergency request is made to bring adventurers from any familia to assist, bypassing any allegiances. Ais and her goddess, Loki, overhear the conversation, and a sense of urgency builds. Back at the Silverback's confrontation, Belle continues to struggle, realizing that Ais probably won't show up to save him this time. But in a strange way, he doesn't mind. If she were to see him now, facing the same danger as before, it might just be what he needs to prove he's capable of standing on his own. After slaying a monster, the person turns to Aina and asks how many more are left. Aina tells him there are probably 3 or 4 left, so Ice takes off to hunt them down. With Ice gone, Misha compliments the Sword Princess, and Aina agrees, saying Belle's admiration for her is totally justified. But Aina can't help but worry about Belle too. Back with Belle, he's joined by Hestia, and that's when the Silverback notices them. The beast lunges at Hestia, but Belle quickly jumps in front of her, throwing himself into the line of fire. They both crash down a flight of stairs and smash through a big wooden door. Belle's relieved that Hestia's okay, but can't help asking, confused and frustrated, why she didn't run when he told her to. Hestia brushes it off, saying she wants to protect him, just like he wants to protect her, and reminds him of the promise he made. She tries to give him the knife she had forged, but before he can react, the Silverback charges again. To escape, Belle grabs Hestia and carries her out of the alley, finding another hidden one. He's convinced the monster's after her, and decides they have to fight it. Despite his doubts, he's not strong enough and doesn't have the right weapon. Hestia believes in him and hands him a new knife. She names it Hestia's knife. Meanwhile, Ice finishes off another monster and hears from her subordinates about the Silverback chasing a young adventurer. Without hesitation, she rushes toward the sounds of the battle. The Silverback, meanwhile, is following Hestia's scent as she enchants the knife with her blood. Flashbacks reveal the quality of the knife crafted by Hephaestus. Hestia updates Belle's status and is shocked to see his skill has grown by 600 points. She now believes he's strong enough to take down the Silverback. Belle, still nervous, holds the knife, but Hestia encourages him, filling him with the confidence he needs to charge. As he attacks, he accidentally breaks one of his chains. Hestia explains that the knife is alive. It'll grow with him. With renewed strength, Belle Belle keeps fighting, destroying the silverback's face mask and armor, and finally stabs it in the chest, defeating it. The citizens nearby burst into applause, cheering for Belle's victory. Hestia rushes to embrace him, overjoyed by his success, and Belle, thrilled, gladly accepts the praise. Hidden in the crowd, Ice watches, impressed. Just then, Loki, always the troublemaker, tries to grope Eyes, but fails. Meanwhile, Belle and Hestia share a moment, but Hestia faints from exhaustion, much to Belle's dismay. On a rooftop cloaked in shadows, Freya watches the scene and wonders to herself if what she did to Hestia was really the right choice. That night, Ganesha is busy cleaning up the stadium, feeling satisfied with how the whole incident turned out. Aina is at the guild, writing up a report on the monster attack, still processing the chaos. Meanwhile, Belle sits outside the room where Hestia is resting at the hostess of fertility, exhausted but too worried to sleep. Seer approaches him and lets him know that Mia is allowing them to stay there as long as needed. She also confesses she feels guilty for getting Belle involved in all this just because she forgot her purse. Seer then fills him in on the public's view of him, saying that they're all talking about how he defeated the Silverback. She admits she watched most of the action and was seriously impressed. Inside, Hestia stirs and calls out to Belle. He rushes in to check on her, and they catch up on what's happened. Belle brings up the name engraved on his new knife's scabbard, and Hestia reveals that she noticed him eyeing the knives at Hephaestus' shop for a while and decided to have one custom made just for him. She reassures him even though Belle is concerned about the cost and promises that she'll handle it. Overcome with emotion, Belle pulls Hestia into a hug. She asks him to lean on her more often, promising she'll always be there for him. Meanwhile, deep in the dungeon, an adventurer named Ged Raish orders his porter, Lily Ruka Arde, to pick up the pace. He insults her, casually saying he can use her as a decoy if they get ambushed by monsters. At the guild, Aina gives Belle a stern talking to for wanting to rush into the 7th level of the dungeon without proper preparation. Belle, though, stands his ground, pointing out that his stats are now average E rank. Aina checks his stats and is surprised by his progress. After some back and forth, she reluctantly agrees to let him try the 7th floor, but only after noticing his lack of proper armor. She asks if he's free the next day. The next morning, Belle meets Aina in the city center by the statue for their shopping trip. They head to Babel to buy Belle some new armor at Hephaestus' shop. Belle complains about the expensive prices, but Aina drags him inside anyway. As they browse, they run into Hestia, dressed as a maid. Belle and Hestia have an awkward moment, and she immediately asks who Aina is. Aina introduces herself, but Hestia, suspicious of her intentions, asks if she's trying to get close to her client. Aina quickly denies it, but the tension is thick. Later, Aina takes Belle to a more affordable shop on the novice blacksmith floor. There, Belle spots a light armor set made by Welf Crozo that catches his eye. The price is within his budget, but it'll drain almost all his funds. Aina finds him and is a bit concerned about his obsession with light armor, but is happy he found something. Still, she points out that Belle should have a party, not just go solo, and suggests he hire a supporter. Belle says he'll think about it. That evening, Belle and Aina part ways. Before leaving, Aina gives him a bracer. On his way home, Belle sees GED about to attack his supporter, Lily, and steps in to stop him. GED tries to shift his anger onto Belle, but Ryu steps in and makes GED leave. Grateful, Lily thanks Ryu, saying she was just being forward. It's then noted that Lily is nowhere in sight, but after a brief chat, they part ways. Hestia's giving Aina the side-eye, like she's about to steal Belle's lunch, or his heart.
Yeah, right. And don't forget Belle. Poor guy can't even buy armor without turning it into a soap opera.
The next day, Belle dons the light armor set and the bracer from Aina before heading into the dungeon. At the entrance, he's met by Lily, who offers her services as a supporter. Belle recognizes her as the Palom girl from before, but Lily corrects him, revealing she's actually a Chenthro. She gives him a small smile, not minding his mix-up. Later, by the fountain, they talk about Lily becoming Belle's supporter. Belle admits he was thinking about hiring one, and Lily persuades him to hire her for the day. In the dungeon, Belle takes on a pack of killer ants, while Lily supports him with guidance. Afterward, Lily compliments him on his performance and asks about his knife. Belle explains that it was a gift from his goddess. Curious, Lily asks which familia Belle belongs to, and he tells her he's part of Hestia's familia. She shares that she belongs to the Soma familia, and suggests they finish up by collecting the last magical stone. Back at the guild that evening, Aina tells Belle about the history of the Soma familia. The conversation shifts to Lily, and Belle decides to invite her to join his party, which Aina agrees to. Just as Belle is about to leave, Aina notices that his knife is missing, which bothers him. Meanwhile, Lily tries to sell Belle's knife at Baum Cornwall's store, but the price he offers is low because the knife is dull and worn out. As Lily leaves the store, she runs into Ryu and Sir. Ryu stops her and demands to see the knife she has. Lily tries to lie, saying the knife is hers, but Ryu doesn't believe her and makes her drop it by tossing a coin at her. Flustered, Lily runs off and bumps into Belle. Ryu and Seer approach Belle, and he nervously asks if they've seen his knife. Ryu then returns it to Belle, and Belle thanks her emotionally for finding it after he dropped it. Ryu explains that a Palom had it. The two waitresses leave, but not before Sir warns Lily to stop misbehaving. Belle, now alone with Lily, asks if she wants to explore the dungeon with him the next day. The next day, they explore the dungeon together. Lily notices Belle's knife is missing, and Belle explains that he's keeping it in his bracer now. They discuss how to split the loot and agree to divide it evenly. After their dungeon run, they earn 26k Valish. Belle insists on dividing it equally, which surprises Lily. Belle explains that without her he wouldn't have made that much money. Elsewhere, a member of the Soma familia complains about the small amount of valleys he earned. Misha and Ina talk quietly about this. Meanwhile, Ice and Riveria fight an unknown monster, while Freya plans to have some fun with Belle. That night at a bar, Hestia vents her frustration about Belle and Lily to Miak. Miak, indifferent, tries to reason with her, saying Belle belongs to no one, but Hestia doesn't care. She then drinks several mugs of beer, downing each one, and continues her drunken rambling about Belle. The next day, Hestia wakes up with a hangover and Belle takes care of her, much to her annoyance. Wanting to repay Hestia for everything she's done for him, Belle offers to take her out for a meal using the money he earned from his latest dungeon adventure. Hestia sees it as a date and decides to do it that day, preparing herself for it and setting a time and place for their meeting. Later, Hestia goes to the temple baths, where she meets Demeter. As soon as Demeter hears about Hestia's date, she spreads the news to the other bathers. Embarrassed by all the attention, Hestia quickly leaves, but not before revealing the lucky man she's going out with. At the meeting spot, Belle waits for Hestia. When she arrives, the goddesses from the temple bath swarm Belle. Demeter appears and apologizes for spying on her to find out who Belle is. Upset by the attention Belle is getting, especially when he ends up face first in Demeter's chest, Hestia and Belle flee. The goddesses chase them all over town, but Hestia and Belle manage to escape by hiding in the bell tower. There, they enjoy the view of Babel Tower and promise to return someday. Meanwhile, Lily's money is stolen by a Soma Familia member named Canoe. Unfazed by the theft, Lily vows to get Belle's knife back. The next day at the guild, Misha and Ina discuss the Soma Familia's large earnings. Elsewhere, Belle, with Lily's help and her magic knife, fights off a swarm of killer ants and almirages. After the battle, Belle thanks Lily for saving his life and using such a valuable item. They enjoy lunch together, and Lily asks for the next day off to attend a Soma Familia meeting, which Belle agrees to.
I feel Hestia's got that jealous girlfriend vibe. I mean, Demeter really took the goddess of harvest thing a bit too literally with that chest action.
Yeah, but Belle's escape plan was solid. Hiding in a bell tower was really a smooth move. Too bad the goddesses couldn't catch up. The following day, Belle gives Seer a boxed lunch and asks her what she does on her days off. Sir says she likes reading, but Belle finds most books too complicated. He's intrigued by a book on magic, and Sir lets him borrow it. At home, Belle gets lost in the book, trying to answer all the questions it raises. That night, Hestia wakes him up and learns about the magic book. She performs a status update on Belle, and is amazed to find that Belle can now cast firebolt magic. She explains that it's chantless magic and suggests he try it out in the dungeon the next day. However, Belle, eager to try his new magic, heads to the dungeon that night. He uses firebolt against a pack of goblins, but soon faints from exhaustion. Riveria and Ice find him unconscious, and Belle wakes up an ace slap. Panicked, he rolls away, leaving Ice confused. The next morning, Belle regrets running away from Ice again. Hestia, waking up, realizes that the magic book Belle borrowed is actually a grimoire and explains its value. Hestia reassures Belle that she'll handle the costs for the book, though Belle is distraught and doesn't want her to pay for it. Later, Belle apologizes to Miak for his mistake, but Miak doesn't hold it against him. Meanwhile, Ina is shopping when she runs into Loki and Riveria. Loki forces Riveria to buy expensive Soma wine for her, and then she reveals that the Soma Familia doesn't worship Soma, but the wine itself. Elsewhere, Lily is followed by Canoe, and when Belle finds out, he confronts GED, Lily's former partner. GED suggests they team up against Lily for her money, but Belle rejects the offer. Lily then approaches Belle and asks what he talked about with GED. Belle brushes it off and asks the same of Lily, who does the same. They both head off to the dungeon, with Lily suspecting their time together is soon coming to an end. Lily's past is revealed, showing that she hated all adventurers because of the abuse she suffered from her old adventuring party. At the Twilight Manor, Loki enjoys more Soma wine and tells Ina more about the Soma Familia. The Soma wine sold in stores is a failed product, and the real Soma wine makes people really drunk. The Familia exists only for this wine, and they make money through extortion and sacrifices. After sharing this information, Loki goes with Ice to do a status update on her. Meanwhile, Lily is preparing for something. At the church, Hestia and Belle talk about how Lily is being targeted by bad adventurers. Hestia thinks Lily can't be trusted, but Belle still believes in her. The next day, outside the dungeon, Belle meets Lily, who suggests they start at level 10. Belle is unsure but agrees after Lily convinces him. Ina is doing a dungeon inspection and runs into Ace. Meanwhile, Lily gives Belle a short sword called a Basilard to replace his short knife. Ina overhears a conversation about Lily scamming Belle, and she warns Ice. On the 10th level, Belle faces an orc. After defeating it with his firebolt and Basilard, Belle notices Lily is missing. He's soon surrounded by monster lures and orcs. While fighting them, Lily steals his knife and leaves him behind. Lily removes the magic that gave her beastmen ears and heads for the dungeon's exit. She plans to sell Belle's knife and escape the Soma Familia, but then GED trips her, steals her weapons, and beats her. Canoe and his crew arrive, using killer ant corpses to attract more ants. GED tries to run but is killed by the ants. Canoe makes a deal with Lily, and she gives him her gnome lockbox key, but Canoe uses her as a decoy to escape. Lily feels unlucky, but just as she's about to die, Belle uses firebolt to kill the ants. Ina asks Hestia to convince Belle to stop trusting Lily, but Hestia says Belle doesn't want to abandon her. While they talk, Belle fights the last of the killer ants to save Lily. He tells her someone else killed the remaining orcs while she was is gone. Bell forgives Lily for betraying him. Later, Bell apologizes to Ina for losing the bracer she gave him, but she's just happy he's safe. The next day, Bell meets Lily again, and they decide to work together once more. Freya is sitting in her library thinking about Bell's progress. She notices that he is growing, but he's still unsure of himself. She believes that once he gets past this doubt, he will grow even faster, and Ottar can handle the rest. Bell and Lily take a walk together. Lily tells Bell about her transformation magic, which will help her hide her identity. She plans to make people think she died in the dungeon. Lily asks Bell if he's okay with her being his companion again after she betrayed him. Bell reassures her that he's forgiven her, and they continue to the church, Bell's home. There, Lily meets Hestia, and while Bell makes tea, Hestia and Lily talk. Lily promises she will never betray Bell again, and Hestia believes her. However, Hestia still doesn't like how Lily treated Bell before and now tries to be nice. Hestia tells Lily that she must protect Bell to prove she's serious about her vow. Just before Bell arrives, Hestia says Lily should never try to get too close to him. When Bell comes in, Hestia hugs his arm, saying she's excited to work with him. Lily, feeling embarrassed, hugs his other arm and promises to keep her vow. Bell is shocked and quickly leaves, claiming he has to talk to Ina at the guild. After he leaves, Hestia and Lily argue, blaming each other for Bell running away. At the guild, Bell sees Ina talking with Ice. He tries to leave, but bumps into a big man and then Ys, who stops him. Ina scolds Bell, and he apologizes. Ice has something to talk to Bell about. She returns Bell's arm protector, and Bell realizes she saved him from the orcs in the 10th level dungeon. Ys apologizes for letting the Minotaur escape, but Bell apologizes for not thanking her properly and being scared in front of her. Ys smiles, and Bell smiles too. Ina watches the whole thing.
Did you see Bell's face when he bumps into Ace? I swear the guy's about to explode from the awkwardness.
I think Bell's heart just skipped a few beats though. Outside the guild, Ice tells Bell that making it to the 10th level of the dungeon is impressive. Bell tries to downplay it, but Ice offers to teach him how to fight better. The next morning, Bell and Ice practice combat on top of the city wall. Ace teaches Bell some combat stances using his knife, and Bell thinks Ice is a natural fighter. When Bell tries to ask her something, Ice kicks him in the face, knocking him out. This just makes Bell believe even more that Ace is a skilled fighter. Ice apologizes, but Bell doesn't mind. She suggests they spar to improve. Ace uses her sheath as a weapon and notes that Bell has a fear of fighting, especially of the Minotaur. They continue sparring, with Ice giving Bell tips until the sun rises. In the dungeon, Ottar fights a group of Minotaurs at Freya's request. A new Minotaur with a blood-soaked weapon appears, and Ottar, impressed, destroys its weapon. He gives it one of his own and tells it to master it. Meanwhile, Bell and Lily are exploring the dungeon, aiming to go as far as they can because the next day is their day off. Lily notices bruises on Bell's face, but Bell downplays it. They're soon attacked by a group of imps, and with Lily's help, Bell kills them. Orcs appear next, joining the remaining imps. Lily suggests retreating to regroup, but Bell refuses, determined to become as strong as Ace. Meanwhile, Ottar spars with the Minotaur he gave his weapon to, and breaks its right horn. The next morning, Bell continues sparring with Ice, getting knocked out multiple times. When they take a break, Ace asks Bell how he's getting so strong so quickly. Bell says he's not that strong, but he wants to be for someone special. To his surprise, Ice says she understands that feeling. They then do special nap training, which is important for surviving in the dungeon. Bell is surprised at how quickly Ace falls asleep. Bell's grandpa appears as a manifestation and encourages Bell to take advantage of the sleeping Ace. Another manifestation of Hestia appears and tells Bell not to do it, and the two manifestations argue. In the end, Bell decides not to take advantage of Ace while she sleeps. Back in the dungeon, Ottar finishes his fight with the Minotaur after his weapon breaks. That evening, Bell and Ys walk through the city and stop at a food stall where Hestia works. Hestia scolds Bell for his behavior, but then she's told what happened with Ice. She allows it to continue for now, but warns Ice not to get too close to Bell. News spreads through the guild about Ice single-handedly defeating a boss creature on the 37th level of the dungeon. Bell feels down about the news, but is more determined than ever to reach Ace's level. As Bell walks through the city, Seer approaches him and asks him to wash dishes for her. Although Bell isn't thrilled about it, he agrees, hoping it will distract him from Ice's accomplishment. The pile of dishes is huge, so Ryu steps in to help. While cleaning, Bell asks Ryu, a former adventurer, for advice on how to rank up. She tells him that he'll need to do good deeds, defeat strong enemies, and use techniques and strategies. Bell remembers Ice saying he lacked those things. Ryu also suggests that Bell form a party to make up for his weaknesses and emphasizes that going on adventures is essential for leveling up. Sir, who's nearby, overhears their conversation. The next day, Bell and Ice continue sparring, and Bell finally lands a counterattack on her. It's the last day of their training together, and they both thank each other for their help, wishing each other the best. Bell silently hopes to reach Ice's level one day. Back at the church, Bell packs for his next adventure and tells Hestia about his last day of training with Ace. Before leaving, Hestia tries to show Bell his new stats, but he refuses to look at them until he returns. At the dungeon entrance, Finn Daimni, the captain of the Loki Familia, gives a speech to his members about the upcoming adventure. The Familia will split into two groups, one led by Finn and the other by Gareth. The Hephaestus Familia blacksmiths will provide support. The goal is to reach level 18 and regroup, then push on to the 50th level. Their ultimate objective is to reach the the never-before-reached 59th level. Meanwhile, Atar reports to Freya, who wonders if Belle will grow significantly from this challenge. On the 9th level of the dungeon, Belle and Lily are unsettled by an eerie, ominous feeling. Belle notices the lack of monsters and adventurers, which reminds him of his encounter with the Minotaur. As they continue, they're suddenly confronted by the same one-horned Minotaur, wielding Atar's spare broadsword. Lily pushes Belle out of the way just in time to dodge the attack, but Belle's firebolt spells have no effect on the beast. The Minotaur, and between then slams Belle into a dungeon wall, leaving him hurt and exhausted. Meanwhile, Finn's group is alerted to the Minotaur on the 9th level. Concerned that another adventurer might have fallen victim to it, part of the Loki Familia sets out to assist. Belle, struggling, realizes his hesitance stems from his own cowardice. After Lily is knocked out from saving him, Belle orders her to flee, but she stubbornly refuses. Left alone, Belle faces off against the Minotaur, now wielding 2 weapons, hoping to buy time for Lily to escape. The Minotaur breaks Belle's chestplate with its horn, but just then, Ice arrives at the scene. As Belle laments being saved by her again, the rest of the Loki Familia, led by Finn, joins the fray. Belle, eager to prove himself, challenges the Minotaur once more. Beat recognizes Belle as the tomato guy that Ice once saved and mocks Belle for his incompetence. Tiona asks Ice if it's alright for Belle to continue fighting the Minotaur alone. Lily, however, pleads for help, causing her to faint from exhaustion, which Reveria heals. Moved by Lily's plea, Bet decides to assist Belle, though he's surprised to see Belle holding his own against the Minotaur. While the fight rages on, Freya watches from afar, fascinated by Belle's struggle. Despite Belle's impressive knife skills, the Minotaur's defenses are unbreachable. As the fight reaches its peak, Belle's basilar is broken, but he manages to stab the Minotaur's right arm. With the Minotaur unable to use its sword, Belle uses it against the beast, landing several slashes before finishing the fight with multiple firebolt spells. After the Minotaur is defeated, Lily rushes to Belle, and the Loki Familia approaches. Reveria checks Belle's stats at Bates' request, revealing that all of his abilities are S-ranked. That night, Belle is bedridden with Hestia by his side. She congratulates him on his victory with a kiss, proud of his accomplishment. At the guild, Ina can't help but notice the huge grin on Belle's face. To her shock, Belle casually drops the bomb that he's hit level 2 in just a month and a half. Ina's jaw nearly hits the floor. Later that day, Belle is staring in awe at the Minotaur's horn when Hestia checks his stats. To Belle's delight, Hestia reveals that he's unlocked a second skill, Argonaut. Hestia's eyes sparkle as she explains that this skill symbolizes Belle's dream to become a true hero. Over the moon with excitement, she rushes off to attend Donatius Day, a quarterly meeting of the gods, where Belle will also get a second name. As Hestia walks through the grand halls of the temple, she's approached by Takami Kazuchi. The two chat about Belle's shocking rise to rank 2 in less than 2 months, before switching to a discussion about Yamato Mikoto, a member of Takami Kazuchi's familia, also reaching rank 2. Meanwhile, Belle, busy cleaning the church, wonders what his second name will be. Just as he looks at his old armor, Hestia bursts in, beaming, and reveals his second name. Later that night at the Hostess of Fertility, Belle looks defeated as he tells Lily his new name.
Little rookie? Is that really what they call you?
Little Rookie. Lily, not impressed, thinks it sounds pretty ordinary. Hestia, however, defends it, saying it's the safest option. The conversation shifts as Sur and Ryu join the table and the other patrons start recognizing Belle for his recent heroics. When asked why the two waitresses are hanging out with them, Ryu admits it was at Mia's request. The group talks about Belle's plan to tackle the middle levels of the dungeon. Little Rookie? Belle really went with that? Guess he's trying to keep his ego in check, but even Lily's not having it.
Hestia's trying to spin it like it's a genius move, but we all know it's just safe.
Ryu warns Belle not to go past the 13th level, where the monsters get brutal. She suggests recruiting more people into his party to make the journey easier. Just as they're discussing this, a bulky adventurer with facial scars and his crew approach Belle's table, offering Tasmanen to recruit him into their party in exchange for time with Ryu. Ryu, not having it, quickly shuts him down, even restraining him for a moment. The guy tries to push back, but Mia steps in, forcing him and his crew to pay their bill and leave. The next day, Belle visits the Hephaestus Familia's novice blacksmith shop, hoping to find another set of armor from Welf Krauzo. Unfortunately, no luck, no Welf sets in sight. But when he asks the store clerk, the man laughs and shows Belle a set forged by none other than Welf himself. Outside the store, Belle and Welf strike up a conversation, and Welf offers him a deal. He'll forge Belle some new gear, but in exchange, Belle will invite him to join his party. Belle, Lily, and their new member, Welf, reach the 10th floor of the dungeon, where Lily voices her disapproval of Welf, joining without her say-so. Belle, eager to defend his new ally, reveals Welf's full name, prompting Lily to share the tragic history of the Krauzo family, once famous for crafting magical weapons, until they lost the ability to do so, ruining their name. Welf coolly confirms the tale, and just as the group processes this, monsters, imps and orcs, burst from the ground. A battle ensues, and as Belle fights, he realizes he's becoming faster and stronger, his magic improving. He defeats a hard-armored monster with a firebolt, noting that he's getting closer to Ice level of power. Meanwhile, Bet, Tion, and Tyona battle a group of flame rocks. Reveria tells Gareth the trio's motivation is Belle's recent rise, inspiring even Ace to join the fight. Back with Belle's group, Welf notices a blue-white sparkle from Belle's hand just before an infant dragon appears, scaring off another party. It spots Lily and chases her, but Belle defeats it with another firebolt. Later, Hestia reveals that the sparkle came from Belle's new Argonaut skill. Belle asks her about Welf's family, and she explains that the Croso family once forged magical swords but lost that ability, leaving Welf as the only one capable of it. However, Welf refuses Abz to make magical weapons for reasons unknown. The next day, Belle tells Welf they're skipping the dungeon due to Lily's sickness. As a treat, Welf takes Belle to his blacksmith workshop, where Belle tries out a sword he's impressed by. Welf assumes Belle wants a magical weapon, thinking Hestia might have mentioned it, but Belle apologizes. Welf confesses his fear that Belle would see him differently once he knew about his skill. Noticing Belle's minotaur horn, Welf decides to forge a new knife using it as material. As he forges, Welf admits his hatred of making magical weapons due to the unsavory clientele he attracts. Once finished, he's proud of the knife and gives it to Belle. Afterward, Lily briefs the group on the dangers of the middle levels of the dungeon, and they prepare to head deeper. Hestia says goodbye to Belle outside the church. She notices the salamander wool he's wearing, and Belle explains that Ina said it's important for the mid-levels of the dungeon. After that, Belle leaves and Hestia watches him go. Outside the dungeon, Takamikazuchi sees his familia off as they enter the dungeon. Hestia walks up to him and they talk about their familias heading to the mid-levels. A small earthquake happens, and it shakes a bit longer each time. Hestia starts to worry about Belle's safety. Inside the dungeon, Belle's group fights a group of hellhounds. After defeating them, they face a new group of Almiraj. Meanwhile, Hermes and his captain, ASFE, talk about the rumors surrounding Belle. Hermes is not bothered by the rumors because he's curious about Belle. He even jokes with ASAE about being jealous of Belle getting his attention, but ASFE denies it. They then go to the hostess of fertility and meet Chloe and Seer. Back in the dungeon, Takamikazuchi's familia is running from a group of Almiraj carrying a wounded member. Mikoto, their leader, turns back to fight the Almiraj, but soon that they are chased by hellhounds. At the same time, Belle's group fights against a large group of Almiraj. Uka, carrying the wounded member, decides it's best to save themselves and not help Belle's group. Takamikazuchi's familia runs past Belle's, and the hellhounds join the Almiraj. With no choice, Belle's group runs into a narrow hallway. Belle uses his firebolt spell, and they manage to defeat a few hellhounds. But Welf gets injured in the process, and the group realizes they're surrounded. Belle remembers Ryu's warning about the dangers of the mid-levels, and they are now surrounded by many Almiraj. More monsters appear from the ceiling, causing part of the floor to collapse on them. After the dust settles, Welf is trapped under a rock, and Lily is exhausted. A hellhound appears ready to attack. Panicked, Hestia goes to the guild, but she learns Belle isn't there. Ina asks about Belle's whereabouts, and Hestia submits a quest to find Belle and his group. While the quest is being processed, Takamikazuchi arrives at the guild with a guilt-ridden Uka and Mikoto. Belle's group, now 2 floors lower than before, is trying to find a way out, but keeps hitting dead ends. They hear monsters getting closer, and Welf says they should leave him behind if he becomes a burden. Lily suggests that if they can reach the safe zone at level 18, they might be able to make it back to the surface alive by teaming up with a stronger group of adventurers. She also mentions that the natural shafts between the dungeon floors could help them avoid the stairs. As for the floor boss on level 17, Lily believes it won't be a problem since the Loki familia recently passed through there, and it will take a long time for it to revive. Belle agrees with the plan and the group continues. Meanwhile, Takamikazuchi, Hephaestus, Miyach, and Dr. Naza discuss the situation regarding Hestia's familia in the dungeon. Hephaestus can't send help from her familia because those who could enter the mid-levels are a width of the Loki familia. Takamikazuchi can only send 3 members of his familia. Hermes arrives with ASV and offers his help, claiming he wants to help an old friend. The other gods criticize his motives, but Hermes insists he's sincere. He offers for ASV to join the search party, and she reluctantly agrees. Hestia allows her to join, and despite his claims of sincerity, Hermes' real motive is simply to enter the dungeon. Hestia then says she wants to join too, and Hermes reluctantly agrees. He believes Belle is okay. Back in the dungeon, Belle's group is fine and has managed to climb down another level through a shaft. Hephaestus asks Hestia to pass a message to Welf. Hermes suggests recruiting Ryu to help since their current team is still not strong enough. Belle's group continues exploring deeper into the dungeon, using a smelly sack to repel monsters. They're still confronted by a hellhound, but Welf uses his will-o-wisp spell, causing the hellhound's fireball to backfire and kill it. Though Welf is exhausted, he insists he's still okay to continue. On the surface, Freya wonders what Hermes is up to and says that only she can play with Belle. Back in the dungeon, the odor from their sack wears off and a minotaur appears. Belle, fueled by intense emotions, easily defeats the minotaur. Then, 3 more minotaurs show up. Using the weapon dropped by the first minotaur and powered by his Argonaut skill, Belle defeats all 3, leaving him breathless and his companions worried. Belle really took down a whole gang of minotaurs. Like, it was no big deal. Dude's got that Argonaut skill working overtime.
Yeah, but man, did you see his face after? He's about to pass out, and Freya's up top, probably thinking, Belle's all mine now.
In the mid-levels of the dungeon, Ryu and Asifai are on the front lines, slicing through Almiraj and hellhounds like it's nothing. Once they wipe out the monster monsters, they keep moving and until they hit a cave-in. While Ryu climbs the rubble, Hestia spots one of Belle's weapons buried inside. At the top, Ryu finds monster stones and empty potion vials. AS5 puts it all together, thinking Belle's group is heading for the safe zone on the 18th level. Ryu and Hermes agree, and Hestia still feels Belle's presence deep in the dungeon. Meanwhile, Welf is knocked out with Mind down after overusing Will-O-Wisp, and Lily's passed out too. Belle refuses to leave them behind, so he carries them down a shaft into the 17th level. Back with the search party, Hestia is digging into Hermes, questioning why he's so eager to help find Belle. Hermes admits someone asked him to, but also says it's out of his own personal interest. When Belle finally reaches the 18th floor, he sees the exit, but right as he's about to make a run for it, the floor boss starts to spawn. Belle dodges it and sprints toward the exit. Once on the 18th floor, Ice approaches, and Belle begs her to help his teammates. Belle wakes up in a tent, calling for his friends. Ice is there, telling him that Riveria and the others healed his comrades. Ace is relieved to see Belle can walk, and she sends him to report to Captain Finn Dimney. In Finn's tent, Belle thanks him and offers his services in return for their kindness. Finn tells Belle that many of his members are poisoned, and the group they sent for an antidote hasn't returned yet. They'll be staying on the 18th floor for a while. Once Belle finishes his business, he steps outside with ease, only to be greeted by Tione and Tiona. Tiona, all excited, wraps her arm around Belle's, gushing over his victory against the Minotaur. Tione joins in, praising Belle too, making him lush like crazy. Belle and Ice walk through a bright forest area. They soon leave the forest and find a large tree with a glowing crystal formation above it. Ice explains that the light will fade over time, making it dark. This place is known by adventurers as the Under Resort or the Labyrinth Paradise. That night, Welf and Lily wake up and apologize to Belle for not being helpful earlier. Belle forgives them. Ai's then appears and tells the group that dinner will be ready soon. At dinner, Belle and his group join the Loki Familia. Just then, Hestia and her search party arrive. Hestia, very emotional, tries to hug Belle, but Lily pulls her away. Hermes approaches Belle, introducing himself and the members of Takamikazuchi's Familia who helped them. Inside a tent, Mikoto kneels and apologizes to Belle, asking for his forgiveness. Belle has no problem with Mikoto in her group, but Lily and Welf are upset with them for causing trouble. Uka says it was his decision, and he doesn't regret it because it was the right choice at the time. This annoys Welf, but Belle says he would have done the same thing in that situation. It will take 2 days for the Loki Familia to rest before they can fight the Goliath on the 17th floor. Hermes suggests they take it easy the next day. After this, everyone leaves the tent. Before Welf leaves, he receives a gift and a message from Hephaestus. Belle admires the crystal above the tree, and Ice joins him, looking worried about him. The two talk, and Ice promises to show Belle the city and the dungeon, which excites him. Suddenly, Hestia appears between them, complaining about being left out of their plans for the next day. Belle pushes Hestia up a slope, and they finally catch up with the other adventurers at the top. The view is beautiful, with the forest and glowing crystal formations in the distance. They arrive at the town of Rivera, known for its high prices on both goods and inns. While Hestia argues with a shopkeeper over prices, Belle runs into the man who had confronted him at the bar earlier. The two almost get into a fight, but Ice steps in to stop it. Later, Hestia shows Belle her new perfume, which he compliments. Lily, however, criticizes Hestia for being self-centered, and Hestia snaps back, saying Lily is no better for buying a new backpack. After their argument, Tiona invites Hestia to join her and the others for a bath, and Hestia agrees. The ladies from Takamikazuchi's Familia decide to join as well. Hermes calls Belle over to talk to him at the camp. At the camp, Bet returns with antidotes for his Familia. He sees Belle talking to Hermes and demands to know why Belle is there, but Finn gives him a vague answer. Meanwhile, Belle and Hermes are watching the ladies bathe in the lake. Belle doesn't want to pee, but Hermes insists it's how men show romance. Belle remembers hearing the same thing from his grandfather, but he still doesn't feel comfortable. Then, Belle loses his balance when Hermes spins around, and he accidentally falls into the bathing area, surprising the ladies. Belle, flustered by Ace's nudity, runs away in embarrassment. Belle tried to be a good boy, but Hermes just threw him into the fire. Poor guy didn't stand a chance.
That was a big oops moment for Belle. Dude's gonna be avoiding eye contact for weeks.
Out of breath, Belle runs into Ryu, who's also bathing. She senses someone was spying on her and throws a rock at Belle with incredible speed, leaving a hole in the tree near him. Belle immediately apologizes and bows to Ryu, begging for her forgiveness. She forgives him, which surprises Belle, and she comments on how self-deprecating he is. They then visit a small burial ground where Ryu places flowers by the weapons of her former comrades from the Familia she once belonged to. Ryu opens up about her painful past. Her companions were killed in a trap set by a rival Familia, and in retaliation, she wiped them out. However, this act led to her being blacklisted by the guild. Ryu admits that if it weren't for Sir finding her alone in an alley one rainy night, she would have died there. This is how she ended up working at the Hostess of Fertility, thanks to Mia's compassion. After sharing her story, Ryu scolds herself, calling herself a violent elf consumed by revenge. Belle, not one to let this slide, comments on her self-deprecating attitude. Grabbing his hand, hand, Ryu tells Belle he's a man worthy of respect. Later that night at Riviera, a man named Mord, who had previously confronted Belle, is frustrated by Belle's progress. He plans to make Belle pay. He's soon joined by a mysterious figure. The next day, Bet, still fuming, takes out his anger on Belle, but Tione and Tiona quickly drag him away. Ys then approaches Belle, and they talk about their plan to head back to the surface the following day. Hestia, watching from a distance, curses Belle for peeping on them, especially when she was alone in the bath. Suddenly, an invisible enemy snatches Hestia away. Belle finds a note left in their tent, realizing she's been taken hostage. Without wasting a moment, he heads to the location where she's being held. When Belle arrives, he's confronted by Mord and his group. Mord challenges him to a one-on-one duel. If Mord wins, he takes all of Belle's possessions, but if Belle wins, Hestia will be returned. Impressed by Belle's boldness, Mord slams his sword into the ground, smashing a small crystal. Belle is temporarily blinded by the flash, and when his vision clears, Mord has disappeared. Suddenly, Mord attacks him from all angles. Far off, Hermes and Asphere are watching, and it's revealed that Hermes orchestrated this entire event to show Belle the other side of his journey. Meanwhile, Welf and the Takamika Zuchi familia arrive, engaging Mord's companions in battle. Overhearing the commotion, the guards watching over Hestia decide to join the fight, abandoning their post. Hestia, now alone, is rescued by Lily, who is disguised as an Almirage. During the chaos, Welf loses a gift from Hephaestus, and Ryu arrives just in time to help. Belle, struggling against the invisible Mord, is on the verge of defeat when, instinctively, he dodges an attack. With his eyes closed, Belle can now evade Mord's attacks with ease. Annoyed, Mord draws his sword and presses harder. To counter, Belle uses the powder from the shattered crystal to temporarily blind Mord, then shatters his sword with his duo blades and lands a dropkick that sends Mord crashing to the ground, making him visible again. Before Mord can recover, Hestia steps in, unleashing her godly might to stop him. As Belle embraces her, an evil tremor shakes the ground. The ceiling above them cracks open, signaling that something much bigger is coming.
Hestia uses her godly power, which causes the dungeon to lock the floor and summon a black Goliath. Before Belle can help fight the monster, Ryu stops him. She asks if he's sure about fighting with his current party. After getting everyone's approval, Belle answers yes. Ryo, amused, tells him he's not qualified to be the leader, but he's not wrong either. She then leaves to fight the monsters, leaving Chigusa in charge of protecting Hestia. Belle and the party follow her. Mord and his group are surrounded by minotaurs, but Lily rescues Mord. In Riviera, ASFI meets Bors and his group to organize the town's defense. Bors is hesitant at first, but after learning all exits are blocked, he agrees to help, knowing they must defeat the Black Goliath to escape. Ryu, Mikoto, Uka, and Welf try to fight the Black Goliath, but their attacks don't work. Ryu believes the floor boss's level is around 5. ASFI tells Ryu that reinforcements from Riviera are ready. ASFI then acts as a decoy, while Bors' men buy time for the mages to prepare a powerful spell. When the mages are ready, they cast their spells, severely damaging the Black Goliath. The vanguard charges at it, but they realize it can regenerate. Fully healed, the Black Goliath counterattacks. Surrounded by monsters, Belle defeats a minotaur and is joined by Ryu and ASFI. They plan to keep distracting the Goliath so the mages can attack again. Lily returns to Hestia and asks for all supplies to be gathered. Hestia has a man take care of it. Lily notices something wrapped in cloth with a Joker symbol. Meanwhile, Ryu is struggling against the Black Goliath's regeneration ability. Chigusa reaches Oka and gives him his shield, despite his reluctance. Belle charges up his right hand with his Argonaut skill and shoots a firebolt at the Black Goliath, blowing off the top of its head. However, the Goliath retaliates with a roar blast, sending Belle flying. The Goliath's head regenerates and it tries to slap Belle, but Uka blocks it with his shield. When Hestia and Lily arrive, they find Belle injured but alive. ASFI goes back to fight the Goliath, and Ryu joins her at Hestia's request. Hestia and Lily call out to Belle, who is unconscious. Belle's spirit hears Hestia's voice but can't move. Hermes then appears and says a quote from Belle's grandfather, which helps Belle awaken. Empowered by his Argonaut skill, Belle grabs a large two-handed sword and charges at the Black Goliath. Asphy blinds the monster. Ryu casts Luminous Wind, and Mikoto briefly holds the Goliath. Welf then uses his magical sword, Kazuki, on the Goliath. Belle uses his heroic shot to destroy its upper body and finishes it off with Hestia's knife. Hermes excitedly tells Zeus that his grandson is not a failure. In fact, Belle is the last hero from Zeus's familia. Back at the hostess of fertility, Belle and his companions celebrate their victory. Belle lies on Hestia's lap, resting peacefully.
That awakening was pure power, grabbing a giant sword and charging at the Black Goliath like a true hero.
Hestia's knife finishing off the Goliath was the cherry on top. Hero status confirmed, and Hermes can't stop gloating. Belle, Welf, Lily, and Mikoto were fighting hellhounds in a dungeon. After the battle, Belle thanked Mikoto for her help, and she thanked him back since it was her idea to go there. As they talked, Belle thought about how he wanted to become as strong as ice one day. Later that night, they celebrated because Welf reached rank 2. Lily joked that Welf might leave the group now since he got what he wanted, his forging skill, but Welf said he wasn't going anywhere. He also thought Mikoto should have joined their celebration. While talking about Belle leveling up, a rude Palom from the Apollo Familia came and insulted them. Belle wanted to fight back, but Welf knocked the Palom out with his ale mug. However, another member of the Apollo Familia beat both Belle and Welf easily. Luckily, Bet stepped in to save Belle before things got worse. Back at the church, Hestia cared for Belle's injuries while Lily helped Welf. Hestia was thankful Belle stood up for her, but told him not to worry about her so much next time. When she found out it was the Apollo Familia who caused the trouble, she got angry.
Belle, next time, just let Welf take care of the mug throwing. He's got that down to an art.
Honestly, if Apollo's guys keep this up, Hestia's gonna need a whole new set of stress relievers. The next day, Belle got scolded by Ina at the guild for getting into a fight. Then, 2 Apollo Familia members gave him a letter for Hestia. When Hestia read it, she saw it was an invitation to a god's banquet. She decided to bring Miak and Takamikazuchi along so she wouldn't go alone. At the banquet, Belle and Hestia joined Miak and Naza outside Apollo's base. Inside, they met Hermes, Takamikazuchi, Aesfi, and Mikoto. Apollo appeared, giving a big speech before the party started. As everyone enjoyed the event, Hermes pulled Belle aside to share some secrets about Apollo and his history. When Freya and her ever-loyal companion Autar arrived at the grand party, she wasted no time weaving her way toward Hestia and her group. Her charm was undeniable, but the moment she tried to inch closer to Belle, Hestia snapped, making it crystal clear that Freya had crossed a line. Aware she had overstepped, Freya gracefully retreated with Autar, leaving behind a storm of tension. Not long after, Loki and Ice made their entrance, heading straight for Hestia and Belle. The room heated up instantly as the 2 goddesses locked horns in a fiery argument. The situation only worsened when Loki mischievously gauged Belle, pushing Hestia's patience to its limit. Tired of the escalating drama, the 2 deities stormed off in opposite directions, dragging Ice and Belle along with them. Belle, overwhelmed by the party's chaos, slipped out onto the balcony to catch his breath. Out there, he spotted the man he'd clashed with at the restaurant, deep in conversation with another member of the Apollo Familia. Before Belle could fully process what he overheard, Hermes appeared out of nowhere, whisking him away for a private talk. In a quieter corner, Hermes casually asked Belle about his reasons for becoming an adventurer. Belle, reflecting warmly, shared how his late grandfather had inspired him. Hermes, ever the trickster, suggested Belle find someone to dance with, but Belle shyly declined. Taking matters into his own hands, Hermes approached Ice with the idea, but conveniently remembered a prior commitment and volunteered Belle in his place. Belle found himself reluctantly swept onto the dance floor with Ice, and their unexpected pairing drew every eye in the room. Hestia and Loki, both fuming, were restrained by Aesfi as they watched the duo. Meanwhile, Freya, clearly amused, slyly asked Autar if summoning minotaurs to crash the party was possible. Autar, ever the voice of reason, denied her mischievous request. As the dance continued, the lights suddenly dimmed, leaving only a spotlight illuminating Belle and Ys. The dramatic moment was interrupted by Apollo, the host of the event, who stepped forward to confront Belle. Hestia immediately shielded her beloved adventurer, but Apollo, seeking revenge for the chaos caused by Hestia's Familia, challenged them to a war game. After the Apollo Familia issued their challenge, the stakes became clear. If they won the war game, Belle would be forced to join their ranks. Hestia, however, had no intention of entertaining such a demand and stormed out of the party with Belle in tow. The next day, Hestia explained the war game's rules to Belle at the church. Their conversation was cut short when the Apollo Familia launched a surprise attack, surrounding the church in an all-out assault. The commotion reached the ears of the hostess of fertility waitresses, who quickly deduced that it was a Familia clash. Belle and Hestia managed to evade the initial wave of attackers by sneaking out the back, only to be cornered by another group of Apollo Familia members. Belle fought fiercely, dispatching most of them, and used the cover of a smokescreen from a magic attack to escape with Hestia in his arms. However, their path was blocked by a dead end. With no other options, Belle leaped onto a rooftop, only to face more pursuers, including the 2 women who had invited him to Apollo's soiree. When one of them offered peace if Belle surrendered, he refused outright. Their clash escalated, and Belle escaped once more, using his firebolt spell as cover. Did Belle just make rooftop parkour his new hobby? Guy's got moves.
Yeah, he's turning rooftops into his personal gym. Maybe next time he'll throw in a backflip for style points.
Among the pursuers, Cassandra warned her partner Daphne not to engage Belle, hinting at a premonition from her own neuromancy. Daphne dismissed it as nonsense and continued the pursuit. Elsewhere, Lily and Welf waited near the dungeon entrance, growing concerned about Belle's unusual tardiness. News of the war between the Hestia and Apollo Familias soon reached them, as well as Ice, who heard about it from Tiona. Finn cautioned Ice that this conflict wasn't like past ones, and Ice acknowledged the gravity of the situation. Back on the run, Belle and Hestia faced relentless relentless pursuit. Now joined by members of the Soma Familia, Belle quickly overpowered the new attackers, but was then confronted by Hyacinthos, the man from the bar. With a smug air, Hyacinthos praised Belle for his perseverance before challenging him directly. Their battle began, and it became evident that Hyacinthos was far more skilled. He overwhelmed Belle with precise strikes, leaving him wounded and bleeding from several cuts. Aina begged her boss to stop the fight between Apollo and Hestia Familias, but he refused. He said the guild couldn't get involved in Familia fights. Aina was upset she couldn't help Belle, but Belle was in worse shape. He was badly hurt from Hyacinthos' attacks. Even though he was nearly beaten, Belle refused to give up and attacked Hyacinthos again. Hyacinthos fought back, angry that Apollo liked Belle more than him. Belle was almost knocked out when Naza saved him with her sniping, letting Belle and Hestia escape for a bit. Soon, more Apollo Familia members caught up to them, but Mikoto, Uka, and Chigusa showed up to fight back. Then, Welf, Lily, and Miak arrived. Miak healed Belle with a potion, while Welf and Lily held off the attackers. As they ran again, more ambushers appeared. Welf and Lily stayed behind so Belle and Hestia could reach the guild. After Lily defeated her enemies, a man named Xanis from the Soma Familia appeared. Welf struggled against his opponent and begged Lily for help, but she refused and said she was going back to her familia, like she was in a trance. Welf realized his enemy was also from the Soma Familia. Hiding under a bridge, Hyacinthos threatened Belle, saying he'd never stop hunting him. Hestia gave Belle two choices: fight an unwinnable battle or leave Orario. She also asked what Belle thought of her. Belle said he respected her, but Hestia got so emotional she accidentally revealed their location. Tired of running, Belle and Hestia went to the Apollo Familia base and agreed to the war games. Later, Welf found them and told them Lily had left. Belle then tried to meet Ice for help, but wasn't allowed inside, as they thought he wanted to recruit her for the war games. Tiona appeared and told Belle to leave, but as he walked away, he ran into Tiona and Ice. After talking briefly, Ice agreed to train Belle for the war games, and Tiona offered to help too. At night, the Soma Familia members gathered outside their mansion, begging their god Soma for his famous wine. Inside, Soma was busy grinding ingredients when Xanis and Lily came to see him. Xanis claimed Lily wanted to return to the Familia, but Lily said she wanted to leave. Angry at being contradicted, Xanis said Lily could leave only if she paid 10 million valis. Soma didn't seem to care and told Xanis to handle it. Later, Xanis visited Lily in a cell at the Soma Familia base. He mocked her, saying Soma only cared about making wine. He also brought up her past, saying she never tried to improve their Familia before. A flashback revealed how Xanis had pressured Lily to return to the Familia during the Apollo Familia ambush. Xanis knew Lily could use transformation magic, thanks to Soma, and planned to exploit her ability for the rest of her life. Laughing, Xanis left, while the jailer scoffed at him. 10 million valis? Xanis has lost it.
Soma's too busy with his wine to even notice.
At the Hostess of Fertility, waitresses Chloe and Anya talked about the war games and noted that Belle and Hestia hadn't been seen. Rumors said they ran away, but Sir believed Belle wouldn't abandon the fight. Meanwhile, Hestia held a meeting to plan Lily's rescue with help from the Miak and Takamikazuchi familias. She explained Belle was busy training for the war game. At the gods meeting, Apollo complained about Hestia skipping meetings. Loki teased that Hestia might run away, but Hestia soon arrived. Apollo declared that if his side won, Belle would join his familia. If Hestia's side won, they'd get whatever they wanted. Hermes drew the war game theme, a siege. This seemed unfair since Hestia's familia had only one member. To balance things, Apollo allowed them to be the attackers and let them add one helper from outside Orario. Freya mocked Apollo for his petty conditions, but the terms were set. After the meeting, Hestia discusses her choice for the extra wargame participant with Miak and Takamikazuchi. She plans to have Hermes negotiate, but that must wait until Lily is rescued from the Soma Familia. Meanwhile, Lily remains imprisoned and is visited by Xanis, who intends to exploit her transformation magic to satisfy his greed. When Lily calls him out, Xanis defends his selfish desires for wealth, women, and wine, mirroring Soma's. Suddenly, an alarm sounds, and the jailer, Chandra, informs Xanis of intruders. Amused, Xanis dismisses the threat, but warns Lily that if she resists, he'll force her to drink Soma's addictive wine, enslaving her to the Familia. Disgusted by Xanis, Chandra secretly helps Lily escape. As Lily sneaks through the halls, she witnesses Hestia and her allies battling the Soma Familia. She begs them to stop for her sake, but Hestia insists that Belle needs her help for the war games. touched. Lily confronts Soma in his brewing chamber, pleading for him to end the fighting. Soma agrees only if she can make the same plea after drinking his divine wine. Lily complies and momentarily succumbs to the wine's effects, but snaps out of it after hallucinating Belle. She repeats her plea, surprising Soma. Xanis intervenes, but Soma silences him and resolves the battle by spilling a vase of divine wine into the courtyard. Furious, Xanis tries to kill Lily but is stopped by Naza and Welf. Afterward, Lily requests to transfer to the Hestia Familia, and Soma consents, reflecting on her transformation. Hestia acknowledges Lily's growth since leaving Soma's Familia. Outside, Hestia thanks her allies, who part ways. Mikoto and Welf later ask their gods to transfer them to the Hestia Familia. Hermes and Seer approach Ryu, requesting her assistance for the War Games. Meanwhile, Belle concludes his training with Ice and Tiona at dusk near the city walls. In her quarters, Freya muses about Apollo and the War Games outcome. Belle regrouped with Hestia, her newly beefed-up Familia, and Ryu, all fired up for the War Games. Riding in a rickety wagon crammed with loud-ass beastmen, they hyped Belle up, swearing they'd cheer him on. Just as things couldn't get weirder, Sir bolted out of nowhere, shoving a necklace with some shiny green jewel into Belle's hand. She called it a good luck charm from some adventurer and promised him a hot meal once the crap show was over. The night before the War Games, Apollo's Familia bunkered down in their castle, ready to throw down. Cassandra, as usual, spouted some creepy prophecy about doom and gloom. Daphne brushed it off like usual, thinking it was just more Cassandra crap. After the gates slammed shut, some poor bastard named Luan barely made it in before being told to lug a massive box that looked sketchy as hell. Cassandra's freaky dreams screamed Trojan horse, but no one gave a damn. By dawn, the guild's hype machine was in full swing. Ibri from the Ganesha Familia played the MC role, bellowing announcements as gods and their crews swarmed to Babel Tower for front row seats. Hermes lit up his magic like a showman, broadcasting the chaos to the whole damn city. At noon, all hell broke loose. Ryu launched the first strike, swinging 2 Crozo-made magical swords like a badass. Hyacinthos freaked and sent half his army outside to deal with her. The swords? Yeah, they shattered after one use. Left with just her wooden sword, Ryu still managed to hold her ground, kicking Apollo Familia ass left and right. Ryu's a total beast, even with just a wooden sword.
Swords may break, but Ryu's still throwing hands.
While Ryu kept the fight messy outside, Mikoto snuck into the castle. Arrows rained down like crazy, but she wasn't backing off. Chanting her magic spell, Mikoto unleashed Futsu no Mitama, locking down a bunch of Apollo Familia idiots. Meanwhile, Ryu smacked down an elf named Lissos, who hated her guts over some village-burning magical weapons drama. The stage was set. The Hestia Familia wasn't just fighting for pride. They were fighting to shove Apollo's smug face into the dirt, and they weren't planning on losing. As the spectators watching the War Games progress, Hermes comments to ASFI that the way that the Apollo Familia is moving is fast. Fast in such a way that someone is feeding them intel on everything. Hermes also notes that the intel can also be virulent and have a detrimental effect as well. Just then, Luan opens the gate to the castle, allowing Belle and Welf to enter. It turns out that Luan was really Lily in disguise. The real Luan was captured and held in a warehouse that Miak oversaw. Back to the siege, Daphnis is informed about the situation, while Belle and Welf head to their location. Daphnis orders her mages to attack the two, but Welf counterattacks with Will-O-Wisp. This allows Belle to pass by, and Welf to challenge Daphnis to a one-on-one match. In the throne room, Hyacinthos is exasperated by this turn of events. Although Cassandra begs Hyacinthos to flee, smacks her away. Hyacinthos then orders his men to take care of Belle fast when he arrives, but not kill him, as he'll do that honor. Hestia's Familia members and ally all continue fighting the Apollo Familia members. Just Belle fires off a firebolt below the throne room that was empowered by his Argonaut. The throne room and the roof above it destroyed. Belle goes on the offensive against Hyacinthos and breaks his sword in the process. About to give the finishing blow, Cassandra grabs Belle, allowing Hyacinthos to cast the spell Arrow Zephyros. Lily appears out of nowhere and tackles Cassandra off of Belle, who then manages to dodge the spell, but it continues to home in on him. At Hyacinthos' command, the spell explodes, however. All it does is wound, and Belle does not incapacitate him. In a fit of rage, Hyacinthos draws a short sword and uses it to attack Belle. On the other hand, Belle counters the attack and coasts him with a single punch. Ibri then proclaims the Hestia Familia as the winners, and those who supported them rejoice. Apollo flabbergasted by this turn of events, Hestia, the winner of the war game, gives her victory demands, those being that his Familia disband. His mansion is confiscated, and he's banished from Orario forever. After the battle, Belle regroups with his allies and thanks them all for their hard work. Sometime after the war games, Hestia and her Familia gather at their new home. Hestia also changes the Familia logo to a flame and a bell in honor of Belle. Lily had gone to her old familia to say her goodbyes to Soma, who had simply told her to take care. Outside the compound, Hestia had been waiting for Lily to return, and once she did, they headed back to their new home. The Hestia familia had been unpacking and welcomed Lily back like it was no big deal. A toast had been held to celebrate Belle reaching rank 3, and it had been decided that he would be the familia commander too. Belle had given a humble speech and raised his glass. After a brief discussion about Apollo's weird tastes in his old manor, it had been revealed that Goibniu had built the place. On top of that, Hestia had dropped a bombshell. She had had him make a fancy cypress bathhouse for them. Mikoto hadn't wasted any time and had dived in, loving every second of it. Welf had checked out the blacksmithing station and had been impressed with how it had been set up. The cypress bathhouse. Hestia's got some serious style.
Belle's rank 3, and now he's the commander. No more slacking off.
As Hestia, Belle, and Lily had talked about how to fix up the mansion, they had spotted some familiar faces, Cassandra and Daphnis from Apollo's old crew, hanging out by the gate. It turned out that Cassandra had lost her pillow, and her oneiromancy had said it would be there. Belle had found it and had handed it over. They had thanked him, saying they would be back the next day. They were coming back because the Hestia familia was recruiting new members. The next day, the familia had held their recruitment drive. A bunch of people had shown up hoping to join. Lily had taken advantage of the crowd, screening recruits, and especially watching out for any women who might catch Belle's eye. Mikoto had been in a rush, flustered because she had taken too long in the bath. She had found a box with Hestia's handwriting that had said, "Do not touch" on it. Later, Hestia had gotten the crowd hyped up with chants, but things had gotten a little weird. She had even asked if everyone thought Belle was cute. After that, Mikoto had crashed the party by revealing the familia's 200 million Valley's debt. The recruits had gotten scared off and had bailed. The debt had been tied to Hephaestus, who had forged Belle's Hestia's knife, and Belle had been stunned. That night, the familia, minus Belle who had been in bed, had had a serious talk about the debt. Since all of Apollo's cash had been spent on the bathhouse and blacksmith station, they had decided to grind through quests in the dungeon to pay it off. But Hestia had been like, "Screw that. I'm taking all the debt on myself," and had shut the conversation down. Later, Belle had woken up and had found Welf in his room. They had headed to the bath, and while they had been in there, Hestia had overheard their chat. She had been soon joined by Lily and Mikoto, and they had started planning to spy on the guys while they bathed, as she had been eavesdropping on another conversation between Belle and Welf, where Belle had talked about how thankful he was to Hestia and the familia. Hestia had gotten all sneaky and had tried to sneak into the bathing area, but Lily and Mikoto had stopped her before she could pull it off. That night, Hestia had let the familia pitch in to help pay off her debt to Hephaestus. After that, they had all kicked back and celebrated. It was nighttime in the city, and Ishtar had let her familia loose in the pleasure district to satisfy the dirty desires of Orario's residents. Back at the Hestia mansion, Mikoto had acted like she was heading to bed, but had slipped out secretly to hit the city. Belle, Welf, and Lily had followed her without her knowing. They'd watched as Mikoto met up with Chigusa and headed into the red light district. The two had gotten surrounded by a bunch of sleazy guys, and Welf and Lily had rushed in to save them, but in the chaos, they'd left Belle behind with a prostitute, and he'd gotten caught up in a crowd that dragged him into a brothel. Mikoto sneaks out, and Belle gets stuck in a brothel? What is this?
Welf and Lily play the heroes, but Belle's the one who gets a full experience.
With the guys out of the way, Mikoto and Chigusa had thanked Welf and Lily for saving them. Mikoto had then explained that they were in that part of town because someone from their homeland might be working there. As they were about to leave, Welf and Lily had realized Belle was missing. Belle had somehow managed to escape the clutches of some prostitutes, only to wander aimlessly around the district. While he was lost, Belle had spotted a Renard who had vanished as soon as he saw her. Belle had been confused, then Hermes had popped up, handing him a vial of aphrodisiac to keep their meeting secret. Chasing after Hermes to return the vial, Belle had run into Aisha, a prostitute who had immediately taken advantage of him and kept the other women away. She dragged him to the Ishtar familia's base, where he found out Ishtar herself was there. This had brought back a flashback of Aina warning Belle about the Ishtar familia. In a separate room, Belle had been with Aisha and the other prostitutes. They had told him how Amazonians capture men to do whatever they want with them. Just when things couldn't get worse, Phryne had shown up, hoping to get a taste of Belle. The other Amazonians had rejected that, but when they'd seen Belle trying to leave, they'd made a bet. Whoever caught Belle first would get him for the night. Belle had escaped the base, but rumors about his capture spread like wildfire. Belle had hidden in a Far Eastern-style brothel, where he had bumped into the Renard he'd seen earlier. Her name was Haruhime. She'd tried to satisfy him, but had fainted when she'd seen his collarbone. When she'd woken up, Haruhime had realized Belle wasn't a customer and learned about his situation. In exchange for leading him out of the pleasure district through a secret passage, she had asked Belle to talk with her until dawn. Belle had agreed, and they'd spent the night chatting. He'd shared why he wanted to be an adventurer, and Haruhime had opened up about about her past from the Far East. They'd bonded over their shared love for the dungeon oratoria. Back at Ishtar's base, Hermes had delivered a package to Ishtar. Their conversation had shifted to Freya, someone Ishtar was itching to take down. Meanwhile, Belle and Haruhime had continued talking, and Haruhime had confessed how she wished a hero would come and free her from her life. But she didn't think that was possible since she was stuck being a prostitute. As dawn broke, Haruhime had led Belle down a secret path toward Daedalus Street. After a heartfelt goodbye, Belle had felt terrible for her, knowing he couldn't do anything to help. Ishtar, meanwhile, had been planning on capturing Belle to mess with Freya.
Back at the Hestia Familia base, Belle got a serious dressing down from Hestia for spending the whole damn night in the Pleasure District. Makoto tried to step in and take the blame, but Belle still got stuck doing a bunch of chores for the neighbors. While he was stuck doing the crap work, Belle overheard some kids playing hero, princess, and monster. The kids reminded him of Haruhime and her stupid dream of being rescued by a hero. To take responsibility for everything that went down in the Pleasure District, the rest of the Hestia Familia pitched in to help Belle with the chores. Mikoto also admitted that the friend she'd been looking for in the district was a Renard. Belle remembered Haruhime was a Renard too and asked if she was the one Mikoto had been searching for. Mikoto confirmed it. Lily then jumped in, saying she knew Belle was thinking about rescuing Haruhime, but she shot that idea down fast. Belle had just barely gotten out of the war games and didn't need to jump into another mess. Welf and Mikoto backed Lily up, agreeing that it was better to let it go. Meanwhile, Hermes was bugging Mia to tell Freya that Ishtar had taken an interest in Belle. Seer overheard, and though she stayed calm, pushed Hermes to explain why Belle had become Ishtar's new obsession. Hermes visited the guild and asked Aina about the Ishtar Familia. Aina told him they were big in both money and dungeon runs, and then dropped some dirt about Phryne and Aisha. When Hermes asked about a Renard, Aina had nothing useful, but she did mention a shady incident involving the Ishtar Familia. Later, Belle stopped by a bookstore and read up on heroic tales. That night in the Pleasure District, Aisha gave Haruhime some candies she'd bought from a merchant in the Far East. Just as Haruhime was about to say something, Mikoto showed up and tried to talk to her, but Haruhime pretended she didn't know Mikoto at all.
Sir's keeping it cool while Hermes spills the tea on Ishtar.
Aisha's got Far East candy, while Hermes is busy digging up dirt. The next day, Belle found out from Mikoto that Haruhime had rejected her. Mikoto opened up about her past with her old familia and Haruhime. Things had been good until Haruhime got sold off to a slave trader. Belle got all emotional and made up his mind to rescue Haruhime, just like she was rescued from her mansion back in the day. Out of nowhere, Hermes popped up to check on Belle, asking him about the Pleasure District. At the Hostess of Fertility, Hermes got the rundown on Haruhime's situation and echoed what Lily had said about messing with the Ishtar Familia. But then he suggested they gather the cash to buy Haruhime. He guessed it would cost around 3 million valis. Mikoto and Belle, thinking they could pull it off, asked about the person they wanted to buy. When Hermes said her name was Haruhime and that she was a Renard, Belle got the chills. Hermes then admitted that the package he delivered to Ishtar was a killing stone and left them to figure things out. Later that night, at the Ishtar Familia base, Ishtar ordered her familia to go after Belle. She was also looking forward to the full moon and the killing stone ritual, planning to take down the Freya Familia. The next day, the Hestia Familia was out in the dungeon, exploring and having a blast, especially Mikoto and Belle. But what they didn't know was that the Ishtar Familia was ahead of them, planning to kidnap Belle. With a little help from a cloaked figure, Aisha got an enchantment cast on her. Meanwhile, Belle's group had their hands full with a bunch of Liger fangs. In the chaos, Aisha grabbed Belle, and the two ended up fighting, but it was clear Belle didn't stand a chance and got overpowered in no time. Mikoto tried to save Belle, but she was defeated by Aisha, and Belle was also captured. It was revealed that Haruhime was the one who enchanted Aisha. Belle woke up in a stone room filled with prison items in the Ishtar Familia base. He was chained to a wall and was approached by Phryne. To stop Phryne from doing anything to Belle, Aisha ordered the other Ishtar Familia members to go after Phryne. Meanwhile, Mikoto woke up in her cell and Haruhime gave her the keys to escape before leaving. Back to Belle, Phryne left him alone for a while to prepare what she planned to do. Haruhime entered the room and freed Belle. Belle thanked her and hugged her, which made Haruhime happy. The Ishtar Familia continued searching for Belle. Mikoto tried to find Belle using magic, but it didn't work. In Phryne's private room, Phryne found out Belle had escaped and yelled Haruhime's name in anger. Elsewhere, Belle and Haruhime walked through a secret tunnel to escape the base. Belle thanked Haruhime and found out Mikoto was okay because she had been given the keys to her cell. Belle worried that Haruhime would be punished for helping him, but Haruhime said she was ready for whatever happened. As Mikoto tried not to be noticed by the Ishtar Familia, she found a book about the killing stone ritual. Although Haruhime had accepted her fate and believed that leniency would be granted toward her, Belle still insisted on rescuing her, as both he and Mikoto wanted to. Hearing this made Haruhime feel happy and she started to cry. Outside, as Ishtar Familia members searched the streets for Belle, a cat beastman cursed, having to look for him. At Hestia's mansion, Takamikazuchi and his familia were informed of the circumstances surrounding Mikoto and Belle's disappearance. In the discussion, they considered many possibilities as to why the Ishtar Familia would have kidnapped Belle and Mikoto. The topic of the killing stone came up, and Takamikazuchi revealed that it was a dark magic ritual that sealed sealed away the soul of a Renard. This allowed the user to wield Renard magic called Yujutsu. Furthermore, once the killing stone was shattered, the soul inside it could never be restored. Since a full moon was needed to complete the ritual, it just so happened that it was that very night.
Haruhime's crying tears of relief, but Belle's out here being the hero.
Takamikazuchi dropping knowledge bombs while the Ishtar Familia is still searching the streets. Outside on the streets of Orario, just before Belle and Haruhime separated, Mikoto reunited with the two of them. Mikoto immediately brought up the killing stone and asked if Haruhime knew about it. Haruhime didn't answer but acted as though she was aware of it. Just then, Aisha appeared and took Haruhime from the group, revealing that the Ishtar Familia's goal was to start a war with the Freya Familia. To gain the power needed for such a feat, they would have to use the rank-boosting magic that Haruhime could harness from the killing stone. Aisha vowed to take Haruhime, informing the determined Belle that this would start a war with the Ishtar Familia. Before the other Ishtar Familia members arrived, Aisha shared some of Haruhime's backstory. Mikoto and Belle managed to escape from the Ishtar Familia once again and take a break in an alley. Belle feels guilty for leaving Haruhime behind and wonders if saving her would start a war with the Ishtar Familia. Hestia, her familia, and Takamikazuchi try to get into the pleasure district, but they're stopped by two Amazonian guards. Uka and Chigusa arrive to confirm that all the other entrances are blocked too. At the Ishtar Familia base, Franny scolds her subordinates for letting Belle escape. Aisha points out that Franny is being hypocritical, since Belle got away because of her. Samira, an Amazonian, suggests they'll catch Belle after the ritual and believes Belle and Mikoto don't have the power to stop them. While Mikoto checks out the area, Belle continues to feel bad about Haruhime's belief in heroes. His frustration activates his Argonaut skill. When Mikoto returns, Belle tells her he's determined to save Haruhime no matter what. Mikoto is touched and agrees to help him. The two make a plan to rescue Haruhime. Belle, using the power of Argonaut, charges into the Ishtar Familia base, casting Firebolt on all the guards. With the chaos, Hestia and her group slip past the entrance to the pleasure district. Elsewhere, Mikoto interrogates a guard and learns that Haruhime is in the Hanging Gardens. When news of Belle reaches Haruhime, Franny orders Samira to move Haruhime to the Hanging Gardens. Back at the base, Belle is still fighting through the Ishtar Familia. Franny confronts him, and they briefly clash. Aisha and many guards arrive, but Ishtar stops them and orders them to the ritual site. Belle and Ishtar talk about her plan to use the killing stone to rank up her familia and take down the Freya Familia. Afterward, Belle is restrained by Tammuz, and Ishtar tries to use her divine charm on him. Freya, now aware of Ishtar's plan, prepares for war with the Ishtar Familia, but the charm doesn't work on Belle because of his Liaris freeze skill. Belle slips away from the guard holding him and escapes, with the guard chasing after him.
Belle's powering up like a boss, while Mikoto's handling the info gathering.
Ishtar's charm backfired big time. Belle's Liaris freeze is the ultimate counter. Mikoto arrives at the Hanging Gardens and defeats two guards protecting Haruhime. The two talk until Lena throws a chakram, slicing Mikoto's shoulder, causing her to fall from the bridge. As she falls, Mikoto fires a red flare to signal her failure. Belle refuses to give up when he sees this, and Mikoto climbs back up to the Hanging Gardens. Before the ritual begins, Mikoto returns and defeats a couple more guards. Samira challenges her to a one-on-one fight, and Mikoto accepts, but is easily overpowered by the stronger Amazonian. Franny soon learns that Belle has escaped from Ishtar and calls him out. Mikoto gets up, ready to fight again, but the ritual is about to start. A flashback shows Takamikazuchi advising Mikoto when she was younger, telling her to embrace the true way of a ninja by using dirty tactics. Following his advice, Mikoto grabs Samira and casts a magical discharge spell, causing a big explosion that takes out Samira and some guards. Weakened from using the spell, Mikoto falls and calls out to Belle to save Haruhime. Belle arrives and rushes toward her. To stop Belle, Franny orders Sheree to kill Haruhime, but Belle stops Sheree and destroys the killing stone in the process. The war kicked off when the Freya Familia attacked the pleasure district, led by Freya herself, who was hell-bent on taking down Ishtar. Even though the killing stone was destroyed, Haruhime still refused to be rescued because of her past as a prostitute. Belle didn't give a damn about that, though. He didn't care that prostitutes were seen as the downfall of heroes. He just wanted to save her. Tired of the endless back and forth between Belle and Haruhime, Franny decided to step in, demanding that Haruhime use her magic on her. But instead of using her Uchide no Kozuchi on Franny, Haruhime used it on Belle. Franny, furious, knocked Haruhime out cold, and Belle found himself going toe-to-toe with the ugly Amazonian. Meanwhile, Aisha told her fellow Amazonians to get the hell out of there, and Attar broke away from the Gulliver brothers to find and heal Mikoto, who was wounded. Back at the Ishtar Familia base, Hestia's group was investigating when they were ambushed by a single Amazonian guard who wiped the floor with them. Just when things looked bad, the Freya Familia's vice captain, Alan, showed up and rescued them, only to trash talk Welf before heading off. Hestia realized Freya was here, and the battle between Belle and Franny raged on. Franny knocked Belle back, sending one of his weapons flying. To fight back, Belle grabbed a broadsword and sliced Franny's face. Enraged, Franny slammed the ground so hard it destroyed most of the area. Belle, using her weight against her, pulled off a counterattack, slamming her down through the bridge. As Belle walked toward Haruhime, Aisha blocked his path. Franny survived her fall and was confronted by Otar, who knocked her out cold after a brief exchange.
Belle's determination to save Haruhime, despite everything, everything is honestly so inspiring.
Yeah, he's not letting anyone's opinion stop him. He's got his heart set on rescuing her, no matter the cost. Mikoto, now healed, was found and helped by Hestia's group. Once she was with them, she told them Belle was at the Hanging Gardens. Meanwhile, the fight between Belle and Aisha heated up when the Uchid no Kazuchi's power ran out. As Ishtar tried to escape, she ran into Freya, who wasn't letting her go that easy. Meanwhile, Hermes and Aesfi watched the Pleasure District burn. Aesfi asked if this was part of Hermes' plan, but he just shrugged it off, saying all he did was light the spark. Back to Belle versus Aisha, the two clashed, with Aisha using her Hell Kaios magic, but Belle used his Argonaut skill to cancel it out. Their powers collided, destroying both their weapons. Refusing to give up, Belle closed the distance and blasted Aisha with a firebolt at point-blank range, taking her down. Finally, Freya confronted Ishtar again. With a single slap, she sent Ishtar back to the heavens. When Ishtar was defeated, the slave collar around Haruhime's neck disintegrated, setting her free for good. Just then, Hestia and the group arrived, with Mikoto especially thrilled that Belle had saved Haruhime. Ares and his familia tried to attack Orario, but it didn't take long before they got their asses handed to them by Gareth Landrock of the Loki Familia. Meanwhile, back at the Hestia Familia mansion, Aisha dumped Haruhime like some lost puppy. Later that day, Belle and Hermes were talking about how Haruhime had officially joined the Hestia Familia at some crappy pub. But then the conversation shifted and Hermes dropped some heavy news. He told Belle about the 3 legendary quests the world was dying for a real hero to complete. The first 2 were to take down the Behemoth and the Leviathan, done and dusted by the Zeus and Hera Familias. But those 2 Familia got wiped out by the 3rd quest. Belle thought the Black Dragon was just some bullshit myth, but Hermes confirmed it was very much real, and it's ready to wreck shit. Back in Ares' camp, his vice captain, Marius, gave him the latest update, and Ares flipped the hell out. Losing like this was pissing him off big time. Meanwhile, at the Hestia Familia mansion, Haruhime was dressed up in a maid outfit hanging up some laundry. Belle tried to be all chivalrous and help her out, but of course, that caused a damn scene. Hestia walked in and put her foot down, making a rule that no boy and girl in the Familia could touch each other anymore. Obviously, this sparked a shitstorm and everyone was pissed. Hestia softened the rule later, clarifying that no inappropriate stuff was allowed between the male and female members. When she asked Belle if a goddess asked him out, what would he say? Belle shot back that he'd reject her. Why? Because he thought goddesses were way too divine for a guy like him. This hit Hestia in the feels so hard she got emotional and stormed off. Belle, feeling like a total idiot, chased after her. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, all kinds of merchants were selling crap to the battered Ares Familia soldiers. Ares, determined to flip the tables, announced he was heading to Orario to capture a god and hold them hostage. His vice captain begged him to reconsider, but Ares didn't give a damn and took off anyway. Back in the streets of Orario, Belle ran into Miak and Hephaestus. Before he asked them about Hestia, he had to know if they'd ever fallen in love with a mortal. They both admitted they had, but not in the way he was talking about. Being gods, their love wasn't the same as a mortal's. They told Belle to respect his goddess, but not to be afraid of his feelings for her. Elsewhere, Hestia was stuck helping out the potato lady, picking potatoes from her garden outside of Orario. But as luck would have it, she ran right into Ares, Marius, and a bunch of his men who kidnapped her and hauled her off to their base. Belle, after parting ways with Miak and Hephaestus, ran into Ice. She told him Hestia had been kidnapped, and with the enemy splitting into 3 separate groups, figuring out which one had Hestia was going to be a hell of a challenge. Hermes stepped in, offering Asfi's help to find her. With Asfi's help, Ice and Belle finally located Hestia. But of course, nothing ever goes smoothly. While they were rescuing her, Belle and Hestia got knocked off a damn cliff and fell into a raging stream. Ice jumped in after them, ready to kick some ass if it meant saving her friend. Hestia slowly woke up in the guest room bed of the village mayor, her head spinning from the events that had just unfolded. Belle sat by her side looking concerned. He informed her that Is had saved them and was out searching for any remnants of the Ares Familia. Just then, the village mayor, Calm, entered the room with his daughter Lena. Hestia, still groggy, thanked Calm for his kindness, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about him. The mayor was polite but hesitated slightly, like he was holding something back. Is returned later that day, having failed to track down ASFI, or the Ares Familia. She only found evidence of a battle, nothing more. Meanwhile, back at the mayor's house, Calm stared at a certain emblem and had a coughing fit. Lena rushed to his side, helping him to bed, and the room fell silent. The next day, the village buzzed with activity as preparations for the harvest festival kicked off. In gratitude for their hospitality, Hestia had Belle help the villagers with the setup. As Belle was going about his tasks, he ran into Ice, now dressed in provincial clothing. After helping a male villager, Belle wandered to a small shrine, noticing a single scale from the Black Dragon inside. A villager explained that there were 10 such scales in the village, each one a symbol of the dragon's protection. Because of these scales, monsters stayed far away from the village, and the villagers revered the Black Dragon for keeping them safe. Belle commented to Ice, who was eyeing the scale with obvious disdain, that the Black Dragon was almost like a god. Ice, however, shot down that idea, and they both made their way back to the mayor's home.
I love how the Black Dragon scales protect the village, like a hidden legend. It really adds depth to the story.
Yeah, but Ice's reaction was interesting. Guess she doesn't see the dragon as a god. Makes me wonder wonder if there's more to the dragon story. Later, that evening, Belle found himself in the mayor's room having a private talk with Cam. The mayor revealed an emblem from his former familia and shared his tragic past. He spoke of the goddess he loved, who had sacrificed her life on the lower world to save him. After the dissolution of his familia, Cam had settled in the village, adopting his daughter Lena. His final piece of advice to Belle was simple yet profound. Always cherish your goddess and protect her. Meanwhile, Hestia had fully recovered from her illness, but she couldn't resist the temptation to feign weakness a little longer to keep Belle's undivided attention. Just then, Ice entered the room with dinner, and Hestia saw an opportunity to probe her rival. She asked Ice what she thought of Belle, and though Ice seemed confused by the question, Hestia took it as a win when Ice described Belle as like a rabbit. That was enough to convince her that Ice didn't have any romantic feelings for Belle. The Harvest Festival kicked off later that day, and the trio, Belle, Ice, and Hestia, attended. As the harvest dance began, a villager explained the tradition. An unmarried man who asked a woman to dance, Hero was confessing his love, and if she accepted, they became a couple. Hestia was practically glowing with excitement, urging Belle to ask her to dance. But just as they were about to enjoy the moment, Lena rushed in to deliver heartbreaking news. Her father, Cam, was dying. The group quickly gathered in his room, where Cam confessed that Hestia reminded him of Bridget, the goddess he had loved and lost. He asked if he'd see Bridget again in the afterlife, and Hestia reassured him, saying that Bridget was obsessive enough to follow him even there. Cam found comfort in this and admitted he was both eager and scared to see her again. In an unexpected gesture, Hestia removed her hair ties, and pretending to be Bridget, comforted him as he passed away peacefully. Outside, Belle and Hestia sat in silence, talking about death, rebirth, and the possibility of love between mortals and deities. As Hestia reassured him that she would always be by his side even after death, Belle, choked with emotion, told her he wanted to stay with her forever. The next day, Belle, Hestia, and Ice left the village behind, heading back to Orario. But somewhere deep in the dungeon, something new was stirring. A Vouivre had just been born. And that was the ending. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys in the next one.
See you next time.